Hello, I am Vaughn Albury.
And I'm Denise Pratt. Welcome to Ed Table Talk Unplugged. It's a new show produced by the communications section of the Ministry of Education, where we explore issues in the ministry and feature key stakeholders.
Thank you, Denise. Indeed, it's 2021, and education worldwide has undergone a metamorphosis of sorts due to the coronavirus pandemic. The majority of the nation's 45,000 public school students live here in New Providence, and for now are limited to instruction via the virtual school platform using the hybrid model.
All schools suspended face-to-face instruction in March of 2020 as the COVID-19 pandemic spread across the world. Back in September 2019, the ministry had launched a virtual school platform. The online instructional program was initially intended to address concerns in the more remote schools, which were experiencing teacher shortages in certain specialty courses. When Hurricane Dorian shuttered some of our schools in Abaco and Grand Bahama, many of our students were able to quickly return to classrooms virtually. Fast forward to March 2020, the pandemic resulted in the stoppage of all face-to-face instruction. The ministry immediately responded by upgrading its virtual school platform and securing electronic devices to facilitate the learning process for all students.
The ministry also partnered with corporate Bahamas and concerned individuals to provide electronic devices for all public school students. Joining us to give an overview of education is the Minister of Education, the Honorable Jeffery Lloyd, along with the ministry's permanent secretary, Mrs. Lorraine Armbrister, who will join us in our final segment. Welcome, Mr. Lloyd.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
Minister, 2020 has been a challenging time for education all over the world, not just here in the Bahamas. Now, generally, how would you describe the state of education here in our country?
I'm very pleased, actually, and I am sure that our listeners, viewers would find that a little probably unsettling, and I'll tell you why. Unlike any other country on earth, we are not faced only with the pandemic. We were visited by Dorian just only 6 months earlier, and the United Nations Secretary General described it as a Category Hell hurricane. It wiped out 2 of our major economic centers and 2 of the centers where our largest population of our students reside outside of New Providence. Additionally, it set us back significantly in terms of our infrastructural circumstance within those various islands. So we're not yet even out of the woods, as it were, and then comes a pandemic which relegated us down to a virtual space. Thank God, as you said in your opening piece, that we had launched a virtual school. We had to go from 1,700, which we had projected for those students in the Family Islands, Michael in particular, now to 45,000 students overnight. And of course, it exposed our deficiencies and weaknesses as a society, certainly within our student categories. Namely, many students simply did not have devices or did not have internet connectivity. So you're talking about a large swath of our 45,000 students who now would be deprived of their instructions. And we had to obviously get on board very quickly with that. The ministry jumped in. We bought some 11,000 devices. Thankfully, corporate Bahamas, led by Leno Corporate Services, came on board and began raising funds as well as to donate devices, which enable a lot of more of our students to get on. At the same time, we did not have such a platform to accommodate all of these students. Thankfully, through the leadership of our director and permanent secretary, we were able to engage one-on-one, a company out of Jamaica with experience in this same kind of platform work. And they were able to provide us with the support through the learning management system. Yes, there were some hiccups because we are unlike any other country in the Caribbean with 17 major population centers, but we worked through them. Again, further, we had teachers who were not equipped to teach online. So we had to get them up to speed, and we did through, again, a cohort of professional development courses. So in consideration of the responses that we made to these unprecedented circumstances, I think that we did fairly well.
Indeed, in terms of all the first to be achieved by the Ministry of Education, especially our teachers, I would say that in your mid-year budget report in the House of Assembly in early March, you highlighted that despite many stakeholders, including Ministry of Education teachers, administrators, and corporate Bahamas, buying into the goal of education. You said many parents were just dropping the ball by not prioritizing education. What is the plan to get more parents to do their part?
Well, it's a little bit disturbing. All you have to do is kind of go through the streets of New Providence and even some parts of the Family Islands and see the number of students, school-age students, who are not being instructed, all right, during what we consider school hours, 9 to 3. So that obviously has to be disturbing to policymakers like myself, to the government, and obviously the Ministry of Education. And naturally, we would, appeal. Certainly the schools have appealed. Teachers and administrators have called those various parents when they haven't seen them on the virtual platform. Hey, what is going on with Junior Mary, as the case may be? Some flimsy excuse. In some schools, we have had as little as 35, 40% participation on the planning platform. Thankfully, in some other schools, we have had as high as 90%. So those where we see, and again, this goes to the dedication of our teachers, where we see this kind of deficit, they've gone after. There's a particular school that went out into the streets, visited homes. Hey, why isn't Junior, why isn't Mary in school? And again, maybe because of a device, maybe because of electricity or lack of connectivity. But what we have also found is that too many of them give flimsy excuses. I mean, just simply flimsy. Now, I can tell you, I've had some concerns for years about the attitude that our society has towards education. We don't see it as the priority that it ought to be. And this starts at the home. I mean, we have got to sensitize our people, our parents, that education is primary. I mean, it's fundamental. If you consider education to be a basic human right, then you have to take advantage of that opportunity. And especially now, when because of this COVID circumstance, a lot of the supervision of the students now fell on the parents.
That's right.
Now we see the parents who are not concerned, parents who are reckless, careless in their attitude toward education, how exposed that was. So I felt, let me use this platform, the House of Assembly, to bring attention. Listen, parents, you are the first educators of your children. You are responsible. Fundamentally, the law states, but from a moral and ethical standpoint, you are responsible to see that those children get educated. It is your responsibility to establish a routine, to establish a disciplined learning environment so that they will be responsive. Now, of course, you and I have already gotten our education as such. Yes, there's lifelong learning. But these youngsters, their future's ahead of them. Give them a chance. And giving them a chance means that you supervise them as you ought to. Some have responded, but we have to keep talking. We have to keep encouraging, keep inspiring, keep providing the message so that we could eventually get through to where we need to be.
Well, Minister, we'd like to acknowledge there are persons who are doing the right thing, and there are many high flyers who, despite all the setbacks, are still able to do well. Tell us because of the COVID-19, it produced a financial strain on the national budget. What is the position of the government, the Ministry of Education, when it comes to the moratorium on international scholarships?
Well, as you know, during the 2020 academic year, there was a moratorium in international scholarships. Fundamentally, we didn't have the money. If 20% of your budget is flattened because of a Dorian, and then all of your budget is flattened essentially because of a pandemic, you understand that we had to therefore retrench. And in the Ministry of Education, Department of Education, there were about 2 or 3 times in which the Ministry of Finance invited us to go back and do some trimming. Of course, we are already bare bones, so you know where's the trimming coming from, but we had to do it, and we did it. Okay? And one of the ways in which we did, because we already now have a free tuition experience at the University of the Bahamas and BTVI.
That's right.
And if you're going to have a university, a national university, a local university, you have to encourage it. You have to support it. You have to finance it and to give it the resources it needs so that it can become what it ought to be. So one of the places that we saw a possibility is that we would place a moratorium on international scholarships. Well, scholarships for students attending or seeking to attend international university. Now, bear in mind that those commitments we had already made,
that's right,
we honored. So if you're already in school, we already provided you with scholarship tuition system. We provided them, but no new ones. Let me just say this very quickly. I don't want to disparage those parents who have done a phenomenal job, and there are many. Okay, they are in the majority. Phenomenal. against tremendous odds. They have done a phenomenal job, fantastic job. We applaud them, we appreciate them, and of course, we encourage them to continue.
There you go. Well, we've now reached our first break. You're watching Ed Table Talk Unplugged with the Minister of Education, the Honorable Jeffery Lloyd. Stay with us. There's more still to come.
Hi there. A lot is happening in education, and that's why the Ministry of Education wants to keep you abreast of the latest information. So here's how. MOE provides a variety of programs, including Ed Talk, Ed Up, Ed Tidbits, Ed Table Talk Unplugged. Log into this channel, the Bahamas Learning Channel, MOE's Facebook page, and YouTube channel. We want to keep you in the know.
Well, welcome back to Ed Table Talk Unplugged. We are speaking with the Minister of Education, the Honorable Jeffery Lloyd, on the state of education in the Bahamas. Now, Minister, when we left off for break, we were talking about the state of the budget for the ministry and how it affects our students who are interested in studying internationally. Will I invite you to continue with that, sir?
Well, very quickly, I just wanted to say that was that moratorium 2020, 2021, but it's now been lifted. And just want to let you know that the scholarship portal that closes on March the 31st. So if you're interested, make your application before that date. Make sure it's a complete application.
Ah, excellent, excellent. Now, I know that one of your priority areas, Minister, is universal preschool education. That's very important, and you've spoken about it previously. But I wanted to know right now, how is it going? Are we meeting the goals that were set?
Oh, absolutely, and I'm very, very proud of that initiative. Of course, as you know, universal studies indicate that students who get an early start, the Inter-American Development Bank, World Bank, and many other studies, those students who get an early start do far better in life, not only in education, but in life, than those who don't. Coming to office in 2017, we found that a little bit more than half the students entering grade 1 were not ready for grade 1. And if you're not ready for grade 1, you're not going to be ready for the succeeding grades. It was the decision then of this government, certainly my passion, that we must get to those 3-year-olds and provide them with at least 2 years of head start, 2 years of socialization, getting the foundational subject areas, skills, literacy, numeracy, and computation, and so on. And it's been magnificent. Now, do understand that the Ministry of Education has limited space. So we therefore partnered with stakeholders, suitably qualified, approved preschool institutions. And I'm very happy to say that that has been phenomenal in its success. There are over 59 such institutions across the country and more coming on board every day. We started out with approximately 1,700 students, 3-year-olds in preschool. Today we are nearing 6,000. Wow. It is our ambition that by the year 2025, we have universal preschool education in the Bahamas, which means that all 3-year-olds would be in a government Ministry of Education approved institution, approved. It may not be in the government system as such, but it would be in a government approved, meaning supported by the government and encouraged by the government. And to that extent, you know, as the government provided grant money for those persons who are already in the preschool business to expand, or those who are interested in getting in. And that grant was up to $25,000. Quite a number of persons received that grant and are doing very well.
Minister, another special category of students, special needs students working at the Ministry of Education. I really got an appreciation for the many hurdles, challenges these preschool students, not preschool, special needs students overcome. How are their needs being met, and are you pleased with what's happening with special needs students who are under the Ministry of Education?
I'm pleased that there has now been a more riveted focus on the needs of differently abled young people, differently abled, yes. Okay? I'm very pleased with that. Of course, we must do more, we can do more, we are going to do more. It is a situation of resource, and there's a reason why. Number one, in order for these students to really excel, they need qualified teachers, and we simply don't have enough of them. This is why the ministry made it a business of it to invite teachers, those who are presently serving and those who are interested, to go into and pursue specialization in these differently abled disciplines. I'm not necessarily pleased with the response. I continue to invite, continue to seek out those persons to join our ministry. And I can accept and understand the competition there, because once they become qualified, the grass certainly is greener elsewhere. I mean, it's very attractive, because not only the Bahamas, I mean, as big as a country as China is, for instance, they are short 1.3 million special teachers in that particular area. So you could see how desperate the world needs. But that doesn't mean we won't keep trying. We must keep trying. We have a special set of money set aside for those teachers who want to go on, those who are now in that special area to go and further their education, to become further equipped, and to enable these young people. I'm also very proud of our parents who now have given shed of the stigma associated with their children. You know, previously you locked them away, you kept them at home. Not anymore. They accept and understand that every person has a basic right to maximize their potential. That right can be unleashed, as it were, awakened, as long as they are in the right environment with the right kind of specialty, and that's what we are seeking to do. So, you know, it's a work in progress. As Obama once said, we are not a perfect nation, but we are being perfected, and that's how it is in the ministry.
Well, Minister, I want to turn to another area of education, more of our adult, mature learners. You know, many persons are unemployed right now. It's a worldwide problem. The pandemic has caused rising unemployment levels, and here too in our country. What would you say to many of our adult learners, many adults who are waiting for the telephone to ring, for the hotel to call them back?
Be like me. I'm still in school. I am now nearing my 50th year. I'm sorry, I'm only kidding. I am right now in throes of education. I'm continuing to learn. I'm doing 4 courses right now. Why? Because the world is advancing and becoming so much more competitive. Okay? You can't afford to rest on your laurels. That bachelor's degree you got in 1983, virtually useless today. Those skills that you had back in 1979, virtually useless today. But the government isn't just simply encouraging you, it's making it possible for you. Right this minute, tuition at BTVI is free for all qualified Bahamians. And here's what I mean by qualified. Certainly all you got to be a Bahamian. And all you need to do is take 6 credit hours. That's essentially 2 courses. When I went to university, I had to take 15 to be full-time.
That's right.
6 credit hours, 2 courses, and you're full-time. The government will pay your tuition. Come on. And there are hosts of skills at the Bahamas Technical and Vocational Institute. You could do it online, you could do it face-to-face, you could do it in the day, you could do it in the evenings, you could do it on weekends, wherever, and in many, many disciplines where today you can learn to become your own entrepreneur. The opportunity is just phenomenal. Not only that, even the University of the Bahamas is doing the exact same thing. So there's really no excuse. You can make the time, especially now when you possibly are unemployed, you can make the time, get back in school, you can apply online. Everything is very easy for you to do now. There are counselors waiting to assist you within what potential career path that you want. So the government is doing its part, and I'm saying this always. The government is doing its part, the ministry is doing its part, you know, corporate Bahamas is doing its part. Come on, folks. You have to do your part. As they say, you could lead the horse to water, and I don't even believe you can lead the horse to water. You can show the horse where the water is, and if the horse needs some assistance, you could take them there, but you can't pour it down their throat and make them drink.
Before we close this segment, Minister, you want to give us what you see as the future of education in the next 5 years, 10 years?
I'm just excited about the future of education and the leadership of Mrs. Armbrister, who's the Permanent Secretary, the Director, Mr. Taylor, and their team. We're excited about education and the possibilities. Here's why I'm excited. People are now beginning to understand that education is a priority. It's not on the back burner. You know, we sit on the doorstep of the greatest nation on earth in history of the world. We accept that. And of course, you know, things have been relatively easy in the Bahamas. We are the envy of the Caribbean, our sisters and brothers. But I tell you, the pandemic has awakened us to realize, my friend, you better be equipped. You better be skilled. And the only way you're going to do that is through education and taking advantage of the opportunities. So I'm happy that this now has come an awakening of our people to realize you better get with it. And that's why we are making emphasis in professional development, emphasis in preschool education, emphasis in infrastructure, technology, technical vocational education, emphasis on differently abled people, to give everyone the opportunity, the chance to maximize their potential. So the opportunities are here. There's no shortage of that. Now you have to embrace them.
There you go. Well, but, last question. There are so many who want to partner with Bahamians, and our diaspora is big. What appeal would you make to those who would like to help? They've taken the opportunities where they think the grass is greener. What do you say to those who would like to help those of us who live here?
I'll say come on home, but if you don't want to come on home, send us your resources. That's your time, talent, and of course your money. Make sure that you bring that right back here so that we can use that to the upliftment of this country that you love. This is where your navel string is buried. Many of you still got parents here. You got siblings here. You've got cousins. You've got family. Many of you still like Kong salad. We have got guava duff. No other place on earth is like the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. You're up there now, frigid with 29 degrees. We are here with 78, 80 degrees. Wouldn't you want to be in the Bahamas? But we have a place for you, and there are many opportunities for you to assist your country right now through, again, your magnanimous resources. Time, you can assist us from wherever in the world, your talent, your skills, and of course, your resources. And I'm looking forward to it. You can get me at jloyd@bahamas.gov.bs. That's my email.
Well, Minister, it's certainly been a pleasure having you here today. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. What do you say, Lloyd?
I agree wholeheartedly. Indeed. Minister, thank you so much. Well, we've come to the end of our second segment. We'd like to thank Minister Lloyd for contributing to our discussion. And in our final segment, we will speak with the ministry's permanent secretary, Lorraine Armbrister. Stay tuned. You're watching Ed Table Talk Unplugged.
This public service announcement is brought to you by the Communications section of the Ministry of Education in conjunction with this channel.
Reading, and by extension, our libraries are very important. So let's support them. The CEO of Al Luck Foundation, Mr. Sebastian, said he never liked to read, but he grew to like it. He supports the Ministry of Education's textbook drive.
I don't like to read either, but reading is a necessity. I encourage everybody to continue to read. Reading is how I stay on top of all of the trends, how I keep educated, how I stay ahead of the curve, competitive, and just well-rounded. So you can never get around reading whether you like it or not. You just got to find the reading that suits you. I want to encourage everybody out there who have gently used books to donate them to the public libraries. We all have them, sketch and dust in our homes, and it would be great if you can just take the time out of your busy schedule to be a good corporate citizen or a good citizen and take those books to your nearest library. The future of our youths depend on it.
This public service announcement was brought to you by the Communications section of the Ministry of Education in conjunction with this channel.
Welcome to our final segment of Ed Table Talk with Ms. Permanent Secretary, Mrs. Lorraine Armbrister. Permanent Secretary Armbrister, thank you so much for being a part of this show. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, Ms. Pratt, Mr. Albury.
Now, many people do not quite understand the role of a permanent secretary in a ministry. I get the question all the time, and sometimes I have problems explaining it. But I do know that you have to marshal a lot of entities, some pleasant, some adversarial. Can you explain to us exactly what is your role in helping us chart the course of the ministry?
Okay, I'll do that, Ms. Pratt. So in every ministry, the minister is responsible for the general direction and control of a ministry.
Okay.
He is assisted in his efforts by the permanent secretary, who has oversight of the administrative and financial parts of what goes on in the ministry. Now, I've been a permanent secretary for about 7 or 8 years, and I find that generally the role of a permanent secretary is the same. However, the needs of a ministry may differ. So, for instance, I first began in the Ministry of Housing, and then I went to the Ministry of Transport and Aviation, and now I'm at the Ministry of Education. So while a permanent secretary is responsible for ensuring that the ministry runs well, the needs of a ministry may differ. And so I found that in the Ministry of Education, when I came to the ministry, there was a need not only to ensure that the ministry was running properly, but also to ensure that the staff were sufficiently motivated and were able to perform their tasks. So in the Ministry of Education, the budget of the Ministry of Education between the three departments is $322 million. Between the Department of Education, the Ministry of Education, and the Department of Archives. So of course, those departments are very, they have heads who are very competent and they run their departments well. But ultimately, it's only the PS who can get in trouble if things go awry. And as we know, the government is in the process of passing legislation now to shore up the accountability and transparency of the sector. And so the permanent secretary has even greater responsibilities now. And so certainly in the Ministry of Education, when I returned, I found that I had a role of being not just ensuring that things went well, but I found that I needed to be the chief cheerleader for the staff of the Ministry of Education. Because I came to the Ministry of Education and we went from crisis to crisis. And the 2 hurricanes, well, I came when Dorian came, and then the pandemic came. And so I found that I needed to just not only ensure that people did their jobs, but I needed to encourage them and motivate them to do even better.
Well, indeed, on that point, P.S. Armbrister, how rewarding has it been when you note the contribution of stakeholders, including teachers and administrators, who have bought in despite all the challenges, particularly of Dorian and the pandemic, that they bought into the ministry's slogan of school is closed, but we are not on vacation, as well as safety first, education always.
Well, yes, sir, and I thank you for that question. And that has been, I have seen that has been the foundation of how we have moved forward, because we have been required to provide education for the children of the Bahamas, but not compromise their safety. And so certainly with the pandemic, of course, the role of the Ministry of Health has been critical. Also, the role of the communications team has been critical. I applaud you all. But also the role of not just teachers and administrators, but the general administrative staff in all of the departments. They've all come to the fore and just been exemplary. There's been a lot of negative talk about public officers since March. I'm here to say the Ministry of Education got it going on, okay? The staff of the Ministry of Education have worked consistently hard, have gone above and beyond. Not just in teachers and administrators, but our boards and our committees. I think of NACE, the National Advisory Committee for Education, headed by Mrs. Garraway. Excellent. The Preschool and Daycare Council, headed by Mrs. Agatha Archer. The NACOR board, all of the various boards and committees have gone, the Scholarships Board, they've gone above and beyond. I think of the Examinations and Assessment Division.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, and the Curriculum Division. We had to postpone the exams and then offer them again. They've just been simply exemplary, just done exemplary work. And, you know, we cannot thank them enough.
Yes.
And it's just, it's been a tremendously rewarding experience for me to have been to make my part and to be a contributor to what is going on in the Ministry of Education.
I want to ask you one question. You mentioned earlier that you had to be the cheerleader. You know, there's a scripture in the Bible that says, and David God himself, there were some unique problems he had, major problems. He had to encourage himself in the Lord because
Yes.
no one else was around. Everybody was discouraged. What encourages you?
Well, what encourages me is I really have a love for the children of this nation, okay? And I have a passion for seeing that these children are educated and that we do our part. And that has been such a tremendously rewarding experience for me, just to do my little part along with the director and everybody else. And I started out in the Ministry of Education in 1982, and now I'm back. This is my third stint here, so I've really come full circle. But when I look at the children, this tablet initiative and what we are doing for the children, and the children are so motivated and they're such wonderful young people. And just to have a role to play in seeing that these children perform well, to do their very best. Ultimately, we're here for the children. And so that has been the most rewarding thing for me.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, thank you so much, Permanent Secretary Armbrister. It's always a pleasure to speak with you.
Certainly. Thank you so much.
Again, thank you so much, P.S. Armbrister. We all have a role to play because education, as we have always said, is everyone's business. And if you would like to receive free updates on what's happening in the Ministry of Education, receive free text message notification updates by subscribing to 819-BMOE. That's 819-2663. You can visit our website or hit us up on Facebook. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and other social media platforms. On behalf of my able co-host, Ms. Denise Pratt, I'm Vaughn Aubrey. Thank you so much for joining us. See you again next time.